Welcome to the Happiness Podcast. I'm Dr. Robert Puff. Wouldn't it be wonderful that when we were born, each of us was given a blueprint of how to live our lives well so that we would have purpose and meaning and a successful life, so that when we took our last breath, we'd look back and say, that was a good life. Well, though that would be wonderful, unfortunately, that isn't the way our lives unfold. Some of us are born into families where we're given every opportunity possible, and perhaps when we find something that we're good at, our parents really find the best teachers for us, and with all this training, we become very good at that one skill. But even with all this training and exposure, our interests change, or we may get an injury or something causes us not to want to do it anymore. We all know people who spent years, say, learning to play an instrument like the piano, and they reached a point where they said, I'm done. I'm not doing that anymore, and they quit, and they haven't played for years. And yet for many others of us, we're just surviving our childhood. We're glad we made it through childhood alive and in maybe some sort of one piece. So now that we've reached adulthood, or at least approaching adulthood, how do we find our purpose in our lives so that, like I said at the beginning, when we rest our head at our last breath in life, whether it be 20 years or 100 years, we say, that was a good life. Well, one of the key factors of finding satisfaction in our lives is having purpose. What is our purpose in life? And it's not an easy question. For one person, perhaps working with the poor may be their purpose. And for others of us, that would be the last thing on the earth that we want to do. For someone else, it might be writing that great, beautiful novel. For another, it might be painting. For another, it might be fill in the blank. We are diversified in our interests, in our likes, in our abilities. So today, what I want to talk about is how do we, ourselves, personally, find purpose? Well, in regards to our purpose, what is key, what is essential are three factors. When these three factors are in place, I think our purpose goes so much better. The first ingredient of our purpose is that it is fun for us. When we're doing our purpose, we get a sense of joy out of doing it. For example, a dear friend of mine is a writer, and she's been writing her entire life, and now she's in her 70s, and she continues to write. And it's not because she's making a lot of money out of writing. She isn't. And though she would love to write that great American novel, she hasn't yet. She writes because she loves to write. And she finds purpose in her writing. When we're looking for our purpose in life, there should be joy in our hearts when we think about doing that thing that we think would be our purpose. Do you know who Anna Mary Robinson Moses is? She's better known as Grandma Moses. And at the age of 78, she began to paint. And if you've ever seen her paintings, you can just feel the joy in her work. And when we start something new at 78 years old, we're doing it because it's fun and because it brings joy to our hearts. So when we look for our purpose, whether we're 13 or 83, we're looking for something that brings joy to our hearts. But I think when we often get stuck on this point of finding our purpose is that we have to be good at it. And that's just not true. We don't have to be. What we're looking for is that when we're doing our purpose, it does create a sense of joy and satisfaction in our hearts. I think what can often catch us on this first part is that we think we can only find joy in something if other people approve of it, and thus we're good at it. But that's not what we're talking about here. To truly find our purpose in life, what we're looking for is not external validation, but internal joy, internal sense of, I love this. And whether anyone else thinks I'm good at it, it creates happiness and joy in my heart. And this leads us to the second ingredient of finding purpose in our lives, and that's that we just don't care about the outcome. Yes, we want to make a difference. Yes, we want to do something that is purposeful. But if the whole world acknowledges that it's great, or if no one notices, or only a few people in our lives notice our purpose, what we're looking for is our hearts to say, "This is good." One of my dearest friends works in hospice. And if you know anything about hospice, it's a challenging type of work. Hospice is helping people who are dying to die gracefully. And she goes in and takes care of them. She bathes them. She cleans up after them. She changes diapers. She's doing things that many of us would never do. And even though she has a college degree and could make a lot more at doing almost anything, she chooses to do this work because she likes to help older people transition into the next stage of their life. And she finds so much purpose in it. And again, she's not getting glory for it. She's not making much money at it. But she truly is finding deep satisfaction in helping people gracefully die. And I think this second factor can be really helpful because there's that sense of, if I'm going to find purpose, I got to be good at it. And I think that causes us a lot of stress and a lot of pain and keeps us from doing things that we may find great joy in. I mean, haven't we all known someone who loved to sing and really found joy and happiness in singing, and yet they weren't very good at it? And that didn't keep them from singing. So I do think we have to be very careful about, I have to make sure I do something that has a great outcome. No, we do it because we find joy in just doing it. And whether we're good at it or whether we make a monumental impact on the world, it doesn't matter. What matters is it is something that our heart is calling us towards, and it is something that we enjoy doing. But there is one more thing that we can lean on to help us find our purpose. And it's this. When we think about, again, taking our last breath at the end of our lives, and we look back on our lives, will we say, I lived well, I had purpose in life, I did things that I feel are good, and perhaps even made the world a better place, or my life and the people I touched better off because I was in it? We're looking for that too. We do want to find things that, yes, they create joy, and yes, we're not doing them for the outcome, but also that when we take our last breath, we can say, I lived well. So now that we have these three things in place to keep in mind for our purpose, one is, it's something we find joy and happiness in doing. Two, we don't care about the outcome. We're just doing it for the sake of doing it. And three, we can look back on our lives and say, there was meaning in what I did. Again, not that other people approved of what I did, but what I did in my heart created a meaningful life. And thus, I found purpose in my life. But how do we decide what that purpose is? How do we find purpose in our lives? And for this, there are two parts. The first would be, in many ways, what I talked about, where kids are given opportunities to try a variety of things when they're young, when their parents give them opportunities to explore their interests, and they may find something that they like. It's like that with us. Our parents may have never have done that, but we can do that now, whether we're 18 or 88. What we do is we begin to explore the world. We try things out. We experiment. We talk to people that are doing things and see what that looks like. And if it might be something that piques our curiosity, our interest, we may go help out at a homeless shelter one day. We may take an art class. We may volunteer at a hospital. We may spend some time volunteering with their local hospice organization. We may find a museum nearby or an art gallery and volunteer to be a docent. We may be on vacation in a national park and talk to the people working there, finding out what that life is like and what they do and what their day looks like. In a sense, we become good parents to ourselves. And a good parent really does give their children opportunities to try out a variety of things and see if there's interest, see if there's curiosity, see if there's fun or satisfaction in doing that one thing. But it does take effort, it takes time, it takes commitment, and it takes a desire to find our purpose. And we're not going to find our purpose unless we do the research. And the research often includes talking to a variety of people about what they do, what are the steps it takes to do what they do, and if we wanted to do that, how do we get there? And I would really encourage us to be open. I mean, if we think about something that we've never once in our life done, tried, or even thought about doing for a variety of reasons, I would encourage us to try them, to experiment, to again gather information so that when it is time to decide what we're going to do, there'll be a sense of a great alignment with our lives and our purpose. I really believe we all have purpose in this life, something that we're meant to do, or several things that we're meant to do. But we need to begin by first researching our options. And then part 2. This is what the last thing we do to find purpose in life. And that's to go on retreat and be still and listen. I think why a lot of people miss out on finding their purpose in life is that they never spend time to look, to be still and ask their hearts, what would work for me? And that's why I'm such an advocate of going away, being still, and listening. Because if you really want to know a person, you have to spend time with that person. And if you really want to know what your purpose in life is, you have to spend time with yourself. And you have to be still. And you have to listen. And though this sounds so simple, it is probably the hardest part of all in finding our purpose, because very few people do this. And yet it really is simple. And let me just spell it out as clearly as I can right now. Start with finding some place for a day where you isolate from other people, from your phone, from everything that could distract you, books, and just go to that place. Often it's somewhere in nature, and just sit and listen. And if you do this and it goes okay, then take it to a weekend. Find some place where you can go for a weekend and just be still. Perhaps rent an Airbnb, but somewhere again, I do recommend that's very quiet. You don't bring anything with you except for a journal to write things down on. And again, you just listen. You have all the information that you've been gathering, and you listen. And you say, okay, what is my purpose in life? What am I supposed to be doing now? And what you'll find on these day or these weekend, and perhaps a week sometimes, getaways, is that the purpose will become manifest. It will just scream at you, saying, this is where you're supposed to go. This is what you're supposed to be doing. But it comes from that silence. The silence, the guidance, is always there. It knows what you need, but it needs for you to listen. And so often, we don't listen. We're just going and going and going. So perhaps the most pivotal part of finding our purpose in life is listening, being still, spending time with our hearts, and just listening. These are the magical moments of life because they help us, one, if we're off course, to get back on course. And when we're on course, to fine-tune the path that we're on. At our core, when we listen, I do believe we'll find direction. We'll find our purpose. but we have to be still. Even though we gather all this information, which is essential, then when we gather it, we let that information simmer, and from that silence will come our direction in life. And we listen. And if we keep making it a habit of going on retreats regularly, what we'll find is it will help fine-tune our purpose. Because life is a journey, and our purpose may change. But if we spend time regularly, in silence, on retreat, listening, we'll find that our purpose will become clear, because now we're listening to the 3 factors of finding joy in what we do in our purpose, not caring about the outcome, and having meaning in what we do, with gathering all that information of what our options are. And with these things, in the silence, we'll find the direction that we need to go when we listen. And with this, when we do take our last breath in life, we can say, I lived well. Thank you for joining me on the Happiness Podcast. Besides creating this podcast, there are a variety of other things that I do. If you'd like to keep abreast of these activities, and perhaps someday we may be able to meet in person, just go to www.happinesspodcast.org. That's happinesspodcast.org. You can subscribe to my newsletter, and if you do, you'll be emailed a free PDF copy of my meditation book called Reflections on Meditation. And until next time, accept what is, love what is. Do you ever wonder why some companies do so well, grow, and just seem to keep coming up with great ideas and keep expanding, while other companies are permeated with negativity, lawsuits, employee turnover, and just overall unhappiness in the workplace? Whichever corporate camp you find yourself in, or somewhere in between, the key to any company's ongoing success is to invest in and help their employees perform at their peak performance. There are very clear and specific things that people can do to perform well at work and in life in general. This is the focus of my podcast, and it's also the focus of my work. Being at the cutting edge of any market is sustained through investment in training employees how to perform well. But sustained growth and productivity requires specific psychological tools in order to continue to perform at peak levels. This is where I can help. I've been studying peak performance for over 30 years now, helping people all over the world. And there are very specific things that have to be maintained in order to sustain this level of performance. When companies invest in their employees are invested in them. Unfortunately, it's quite common for companies to be doing exceptionally well in the marketplace, but for unknown reasons, key employees make poor choices, leave the company, or start struggling and coping with stress-related illnesses. Companies that do well know their business really well, but human behavior works in mysterious ways unless you've been trained to understand the causes and cures of underperformance. If you're a forward-thinking company, perhaps it's time to think about giving your employees skills that may really help them perform well at work and throughout their lives. If you work for or manage a company, and you're ready to learn the skills in order to survive and thrive in any market, in any conditions, or in life in general, I'd love to help. These are the skills I've learned. These are the ones I'd love to bring to your company. True lasting success has to be seen from a broader perspective, not just monetary. And if you're ready to bring about these changes, that's where I can help. To learn more, go to www.successbeyondyourimaginationcom. That's successbeyondyourimaginationcom. And whether we're at the doorstep of retirement or have many years to go, may we always be growing and be developing our skills not only as successful employees, but as successful human beings.